just talking to every interior designer I know, all of us, without doubt, have in common that we moved furniture around in our own bedrooms as kids.
Yeah.
So we were, as children, already starting to understand the placement of things within space changes the function of the space, changes how people move through the space.
Yep.
And you probably only have 3 things in your bedroom, but you try them in all different areas to try and work out what actually makes you feel the best.
Welcome back. We are now at episode 5 of Basically Speaking. Today, episode 5, we're going to be discussing not so much a follow-on from the previous ones. We're just going to back this up a little bit and introduce another topic that I think will most likely be one of the more interesting ones. And it's the varying roles of an interior designer, okay? We're going to expand on it a little bit. We're extremely lucky today to have another special guest in Natalie Godwin. Round of applause. Who not only heads up the team of interiors, she also happens to be my wife.
Congratulations.
So normally, and I'll keep on the same vein, I would go into how long I've known the person I'm interviewing, which I'll do again. So
that'll give away my age.
Well, maybe, but it's about 28 years. And look, we can debate it, but let's call it 28 years. But we've actually worked together, I think, now for about 16 years at a couple of different places, right? And fair to say, we know each other pretty well.
Who are you?
But I think from like the design perspective, I think from the synergies that I guess we have and have had and do have, and we challenge each other on design, I think that's probably a big component to kind of how we are and who we are, right? Now, we still have discussions about things, design-wise, but we'll expand on a bit of that. But that's just my little intro. Now, because I want you to now introduce yourself, but I think I need this. And we don't have our regular wine pourer today, so I'm going to do it, and hopefully I'm not shaking.
Just a half.
Just a little tiny one. Okay, now, we don't have to have a sip of that just yet, but we will. So I'll throw to you. So that was my intro to you, but I want to hear from you who you are.
Go.
So it's an intro to you, and we'll then go on to talk about the topic.
Like my name.
Yeah.
Yeah. My name's Natalie.
Okay.
I'm married to you.
You are.
I have been an interior designer now for nearly 30 years.
Wow.
Working commercially, multi-res, residential, medical, lots of industries and avenues. So I love it. I couldn't think of doing anything else. And
so when you left uni, we won't go all the way back, and I touched on where we'd worked before, Mirvac. That's where you tell me a little bit about it.
Well, you were there.
Yeah, true.
So went straight into working for a big developer. I was there for 10 years, so worked on hotels, lots of big multi-res, heritage listed buildings, had great opportunities to work with people from construction backgrounds, estimating backgrounds. I think that was just a fantastic place as a grounding. Coming straight out of uni was fantastic to be around all of those different teams in one company, and it was a great company to work for. And I think what probably was the pivoting moment for me was when I was given the opportunity to work on site for almost 12 months, I think. So building a tower.
The Liberty, down the Goldie,
Building a tower, watching them pour slabs every 4 days, being entrenched in the site specifics and all of the labourers and carpenters and tilers who were actually on site. That was really increased my knowledge like exponentially.
But even that, and there's a whole series of questions, but I think, and like every podcast, what we're trying to do is be both informative about what the roles are of, in this case, interiors. And I think in the process, now this being the fifth one, we've dispelled a few myths or misconceptions about what each of those do, from the discussions with Tony about mortgage broking and how people get funding. I think if you said to somebody, what's an interior designer, or you're an interior designer, I don't think...
There's not one answer.
No, but I don't think you'd hear words from those not in it, like construction, trades. You could go on.
People think it's about soft furnishings.
Yeah. And I think that's probably the crux of trying to uncover that, because I think Mirvac, now and at the time, we were lucky, and you in particular probably, I'm going to go back there a little bit, because I think they had like 23 staff in the design, like it was HPA. And then, we had acquisitions, and we had construction, and we had sales, and, there was a few different departments. But, they went from 23 on, I think, when we were leaving after 10 years, they were up, I'm going to say around 110, right?
Well, there's 100 in architecture.
Yeah.
Like at the high point. So there would have been probably nearly 160 people.
But that was rare, I reckon, back then. Number one, to work
to have
for...
in-house designers.
Yeah, and to work for a developer, which I wouldn't say was, people say, oh, you went to the dark side. It wasn't the case. But even some of the bigger design firms, and I'll say design, because I don't want to say architectural firms, because things have morphed, and we'll talk about it. But getting that exposure to that early, and I'll go on a bit later to talk about, what our new grads of interior design come out of uni with, what they expect. And there's always signs of both amazement and confusion about, well, what do you mean I've got to talk to...
Probably exactly the same, only we didn't realise it then.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. So, okay, that's a bit about you. Did you want to expand any more, or we'll just...
Ask me a question.
Okay, very good. Okay, well, let's talk about interiors, right? And the topic is the varying roles, because I think there are so many. And in part, a bit like as an architect with a master's in architect, we've got to be a jack of all trades, and you can't necessarily master one. Interior design and landscape design, though, they're the same, right? Like it's not just one thing, and it's not just... I'll say it, it's not picking a wallpaper, it's planning, it's...
I prefer to use the word selecting.
Okay, fair enough, we'll call it selecting. So let's dive into it, because I think each of these dot points will expand a bit. And again, we want to have an outcome that our listeners and people that are following this can kind of go, oh, I didn't
know that.
There's some curveballs in here.
Oh, I'll put on my catcher's mitt.
I think the first one is the biggest curveball, and we might spend a bit of time on it, because it can go a few different ways. But broadly speaking, what's the fundamental differences between interior decorator and an interior designer? Can I just preface it with one thing to say there's no right, wrong, otherwise, and we're not saying
and this is just my opinion.
Yes.
So I would say an interior decorator selects soft furnishings like cushions, could possibly do some planning. I think the difference is there might be, I think the gamut of people's experience is enormous across all titles. Yeah. So someone might not have a degree and they might not be an interior designer university trained.
Yep.
They might have done a 6-month diploma decorating course, and they are helping people kind of maybe do some furniture planning. So where is the sofa better located? So selecting cushions, fabrics, finishes, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
I think there's another big difference between maybe residential interior design and commercial interior design. So what I've heard from other interior designers that have more of a residential background, they were quite surprised at the amount of services coordination that an interior designer working on commercial jobs does. So that's kind of like working with mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, hydraulic engineers, working out where all the services are going and how that impacts your ceiling. And if you've come up with a design and then you're kind of collaborating with engineers, you're then working out, okay, how do I keep the, I guess, ethos of my design, knowing the fact that I have all of these services in the ceiling or in the floor or coming down the walls, like how all of that kind of comes together, which I love because it's like...
Well, it's problem solving.
It's problem solving, 3D maths, planning. So, that's not to say that you've got one title, but you can't do something else. But I would say I would be surprised if a decorator is dealing with a mechanical engineer. I just think it's hard. You can't kind of blanket it because there could be some people who are not trained who actually have a brilliant natural ability to do it. Like just talking to every interior designer I know, all of us, without doubt, have in common that we moved furniture around in our own bedrooms as kids. So we were, as children, already starting to understand the placement of things within space changes the function of the space, changes how people move through the space. So with 100% of people I know who are interior designers will say that is something we all have in common as kids. And you probably only have 3 things in your bedroom, but you try them in all different areas to try and work out what actually makes you feel the best.
And I think there's the outside influences, not just the consultants, because if I talk, say, a consultant like an electrical consultant with a specialty in lighting, it's about the warmth and the colour and the feel and the ambience and the beam ray, and it's not just about going, I like that light fitting.
Yes,
that's probably
it's the experience of light and how that helps you either move through the space or does it draw your eye as you walk in. Is there, I guess, a lighting element that draws your eye? So it's the conscious decision to place certain things in certain areas within a plan that will change the way it functions. And
then that side of it is both an ambience component and a sensory and emotive component. Then once you've got that and you say, that's what I'd like to achieve, that's the design, that will give the planning and the notion I want and so on, then you're going to go, okay, now I've got to go behind the scenes there and talk to that consultant to work out how do I get the power or the source to make that happen? And does that then go back to the switchboard? And then all of a sudden, as an interior designer, you're actually then going, oh, now I've got to go to a code to work out that, to turn that beautiful light on that I want there, it's got to have a different fire rating and an RCD's got to do this and that. And that's where you've got to bounce off. So you do keep flipping the hats, the science.
Completely different, that's right. Like medical is completely different to residential.
And I don't think, so only certain types of people, and when I say types, I mean the way the brain works, either can do it and wants to do it. There's a real need and a want that you have to do. Otherwise you'll go, oh, I really want it there, but I don't understand all of that. I'm just going to push it over into that corner because it's easier. So I think it's digging deep, isn't it? And it's more than, I shouldn't say superficial things, it's more than just what's on the surface.
Oh, completely.
Okay. That's good.
I think the interiors that are the cleanest, the most simple, that look the simplest and no fuss are the ones that have all of the working out behind the scenes to make sure that finishes line up. How much do you have to pack out this wall so that this finish lines up with that? It's that kind of stepping back and then, so you step back and then you hone right in. It's probably more that interiors walk around with what are those things? Those things that, magnifying glass.
Yeah, and it's the sum of all of those little parts, and not everybody will go in and notice all of them, but it's as a collective, that's when you see a space that's designed for that use. Okay. Cool.
Well, I think you know when you go into a space, and I think the hardest thing sometimes is for me to tell or allow clients or try and explain what acoustics does in a space, because you can't see it, you have to experience it, and that's very hard for us. Like if you're doing a scheme and you're showing something on paper, you can't experience acoustics. So I think it was just my time working like on universities and that type of project really opened my eyes to the importance of acoustics, and that has, I guess, followed me all the way through, and now I'm really quite passionate about it.
But to go back one step there, and rightly so, acoustics, but we spend a lot of time with, again, consultants. You've got to understand sound first. So, and we do when we have the acoustics, and because they talk about breaking down the wave, and there are products there that can do that. But if you don't understand what the sound is doing or what you want the sound to do, you can't then apply a finish or a process or a structure to it. So once you understand that, like lighting,
I guess
and
it's
the warmth,
science.
it's absolute
It's science, but I think because it's actually the result of science can be beautiful, people forget that it is actually science.
Yeah. But it's interesting. Remember, we went to that space in Berlin, I think.
The Liebskin Museum, the Jewish Museum.
The Jewish Museum. The room itself was designed and curated to make you feel a certain way. It was a memorial of what the space was about. But it made you, just because of the shape and the sound and the colour and the light or lack of light, got you uncomfortable. Now, that's an example of how you can curate a space to an emotion.
Well, you can make people feel uncomfortable just as easy as making them feel comfortable. Yeah. How many people feel comfortable when they walk into a 7-Eleven at 2 o'clock in the morning? Yeah. There's nowhere to hide.
I think that's to stop people stealing stuff. but again, I think that's really the point of that there is to be able to create spaces or multiple spaces or places that respond to what the activity and what the sense is and what you want people to feel. It's not a hit and miss. It's not, I'll chuck the light over there and the plant in there, we'll just see what happens. You've actually gone, that's going to do that because it could be wayfinding. So it's so deep that...
There's so many parts to it. Yeah. And I think the more interior designers that are on more types of projects, the better the projects are, because I think we approach design from a microscopic way and from the inside out. So I know I've had quite a few, I guess, discussions with architects. They want the facade to be a certain way. They want the windows to all be the same. But if it doesn't actually work for what's happening on the inside, I would challenge that window is too low. It needs to be high because it's kind of clashing with something.
Yeah, and I think that's that holistic component. We've touched on that with architecture and interior design, and you can then throw in landscape design, and you just keep going and going. And we'll talk about the team and those sorts of things because it's bigger than anyone thinks, I think. And
I think it's collaboration.
Oh, absolutely.
And you get a much better result if you've got people who are actually approaching the design from different angles.
But I think what a nice message would be, I'd love for people to be, potential future clients, current clients going, oh wow, like to understand and appreciate what the worth of all of that thought process delivers, and it's great at the end. You're not going to get every person on board wanting to know all of those, but if they can walk into the spaces, whether it's a radiology clinic or a nursing home or someone's beautiful home or a lounge, if people come in and just go, oh wow, like
this space feels amazing and I don't know why.
Sometimes I think it's nice to not know why, it just does.
Yeah.
And it's all and everything, right? And because it's very easy to walk into spaces or look at things and know the things you don't like. It's very easy to do that. It's sometimes very hard to walk into a space and go, why do I like this?
I feel comfortable.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so when is the best time? It's a bit of a leading question. When's the best time for an interior designer to be involved in a project? Why, and does it differ pending the typology of the project? And I mean, like,
depends how good the architect is, I guess.
Wow. Back at you. I tend to agree,
Like if there's an architect that probably is not on the money, then get the interior designer in early because then you are bringing something else to the table.
Yep.
I guess there's always synergies between designers, whether they work for the same company or different companies or they collaborate. You know who you work well with and you know how one supports the other in terms of strengths and weaknesses.
Yep.
Like, you know, just recently I've had to do some structural stuff that I have never done before. So I lean on the people. I lean on the people that can explain it to me. So then for the next project, I've got a better understanding of what's happening.
And I think we want to advocate that, and I know we will for the purpose of the discussion. And like the question says, when does the interior designer come on board? In a perfect world, and it can't always happen this way, but interiors and architects start at the same time. Now, as I said, it doesn't always happen that way due to...
Well, sometimes this might be a DA and there's setbacks which I don't personally have any knowledge of what the setbacks need to be. I'm sure I could find out, but it's not my area of expertise and I don't need to do that. So I'm happy to just wait until maybe we know where the boundaries are, work within the constraints.
Yep, and I think more and more as we're in this litigious society where codes are obviously, things become quite prescribed. Thinking about radiology and the lead lining, you have to do certain things, right? And like what you just said then, I'll give an example without saying the project, but it's a tight site and we want to maximise everything. So the boundaries are things that I'm working on to get the form and the general planning of things going. But the aim of that is at that more higher global DA level, council don't care about where the door swings, you could have nothing in there, they just don't care. So they're looking at the fabric of that. Now, you are interested in that and we want all and sundry to be interested in that because that's design. Even we have some acoustic engineers that will still love to see the building. They don't want to go, oh, look, just get me in, I want to talk about that sound. So I think that team component, I think in a perfect world, interior designers are the team that is starting with the architects and everybody else that's required. But it can't always happen that way. So we make...
and some people don't have the budget to pay for 5 consultants.
Absolutely.
So you've got to trust that if you just have an architect, they actually can put on all of those hats and look at, okay, how does the inside function?
Yeah, and I think, and I'll go on to a little bit further about who we are, and we're nearly 20 years now, and yes, we started with 2 people and we've gone to 20 and so on and so on, but we've fallen on our sword, I think, in previous years where we haven't had really a dedicated interiors team. Now, because architects, we clearly think we can do everything, and we do them.
Some architects are better than others at joinery and understanding the micro. The detailing required. Yeah. So
which is both functional, aesthetic, and the sense of the feeling of it all. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
But I think too, the other massive shift is that in the last 10 years, the joinery component and the cabinetry component of architecturally designed houses has possibly gone from, a kitchen, bathroom cabinetry and ensuite cabinetry to be every single robe, studies, media rooms, there is joinery everywhere.
Well, the joinery is now becoming walls of joinery, so therefore you don't have a wall and put a carcass on it. The carcass is the wall, which is the space.
You almost want to hide the walls.
Yeah, yeah. So it is, I think you're right, and I'll touch on it a bit further. There's reasons why I believe that has come to the fray because of other influences, which we'll touch on. But okay, I think the leading answer to that really is we ideally want it from the start and to have input from both sides, even if it is talking about why the setback is. But I think people also need
to understand that we don't just come in when it's time to select finishes.
Exactly, yeah.
But you have some designers who really may be average planners. And then you've got other designers that are amazing planners and they can see, oh, well, if we just shifted this to here, that to there, this would give this result. And some people can see it and some people don't. Often I'm just like, oh, wow, that's actually a really awesome idea.
Yeah. But we at base have those robust discussions, whether it's at resource meeting or lunch or a design review, whereby I might be there talking about something that's about to go into a DA. We encourage the feedback from our interiors team, from our admin staff. Like anyone can stand over it and go, hey, awesome, where's the laundry? You know,
Well, just recently I've been raising that our laundries need to be bigger.
well, I keep forgetting them, which is a problem. Anyway.
A lot of people's dogs sleep in their laundries.
True. How important, and what I've found the last few times, we expand and then we cover a question that I've already asked. How important is it that the interiors team is nested in the project as opposed to coming in after a project has started? So we probably just covered that. But it used to be like you'd go, all right, well, I'm the architect, I've done that bit. Hey, okay, the interiors team can now do that.
Have you ever worked like that though, really?
No, I was just using it as an example and I was throwing myself under the bus. But it's just, I think it used to happen.
Do you know what it actually needs to be? It's not that we need to be involved, like straight up, to get into the project. We need to get to know the client.
True.
Like, there is something really special about going to a client's house and looking at what paintings do they have on the walls. Have they got an amazing art collection? Have they got a piece of furniture from their grandmother that they would like to reuse? Is everyone in their house 6'5" and therefore their benches need to be higher? Like just having a face-to-face meeting in the office, sometimes it takes a little while for clients to feel comfortable enough.
But then they can open up. Yeah.
So we ask lots of questions. We're very curious, but to get the best result, you've got to literally, as clients, be open book.
Yeah, 100%. And I think most of our clients, and it's nothing against...
Can I have some of this?
Yeah. It's nothing... It's not saying it's right or wrong, but I love seeing the surprise on the client's face when, you know, they start getting excited and say, oh, okay, so now I've got to go and talk to the kitchen specialist. And we're like, what? Like, we do that.
But well, maybe that's we're not very clear on that.
Well,
and maybe it's
we're still trying to educate them about what our service is. And to me, they walk out going, oh, wow, I've come to an architectural firm and all of a sudden, all of my now interiors are, it's nested in. That's just how we do it. For us, it's like, well, we are the kitchen.
But I don't know if they're all architects do that.
No, I don't know. I don't know either. And you know, maybe we get feedback from these sort of things.
Sometimes too, there's some architects that are also like, a lot of people do a lot of different things. So just because I've done the degree in interior design does not mean that an architect who has an amazing ability to think differently the way we think cannot actually do it all. And it is also time. You have to have, it's a lot of time to do the architecture and interior design on a house. Consistently.
Absolutely. Do you feel that over the past 10 or so years, the role of an interior designer has changed and evolved?
Yeah, I think so. There's definitely more people being enrolled in university degrees. I think TV shows that are about design, you know, you've got...
I'm going to get to that too, but you're right, 100%.
You've got, I hate to say it, but you've got The Block. You've got, what's the lovely one with Kevin McCloud? Grand Designs. And I think people are, well, you think back like 10 years ago, there was nothing on TV like that.
No. So it's not in front of anyone's face.
No, I remember like 20 years ago, I used to love watching music videos because they were always shot like in these amazing LA houses with great interiors, and I used to get a lot of inspiration, and I get that's before Instagram, that's before Facebook.
Now we're showing our age.
But it was an area like that's where people, you had to travel. You actually had to travel to see what people in other countries were doing. Whereas now, you've got it on Instagram. I could look up any interior designer in Morocco and see, okay, who won the Bar Award in Morocco last year.
So that's, I think what those shows, and we'll talk about it a bit, like The Block and the like.
Grand Designs.
What they've done is they're making people aware or like design. Right, and it's becoming like, oh, we can do that. I will say, you can't build a bathroom in a night.
No,
and that's okay. But I think what they've done is really good for our industry, and I think that has evolved interior design as a general?
Well, you think about GP clinics or
Yeah.
medical facilities, like hospitals. Like people are actually now thinking about the psychology of interior design and how changing the colours, bringing in plants, changing scale or volume, bringing art in, having the landscaping come in. Like that, there's all of these studies about how spaces affect people's ability to get well quicker, and the psychology of how you feel within a space.
And it's also understanding that discipline. Now, I'm not going to rattle them off, but since 2004 to now, we've always done medical. We've done a lot. We've done every type of medical that you could imagine, right?
Well, maybe not quite.
Well, not all of them. But what I like doing with those projects is to understand, what do they do?
Oh, audiology. That's the most interesting.
But again, that then starts to inform what the sense of that space is going to be. So we talked of science before and consultants and really problem solving and right, left brain.
People think that's the boring part, but I think that's the really interesting part.
Look, it is, but I think the soft skill and being able to be personable and uncover and extract what that is. I remember when we did the plastic surgeons clinic, right? And they were a beautiful, successful business, and they knew they came to us because they knew their space was tired. First of all, we could get their planning a lot better, bring it into today's, circulation. That's that techie side of it. But then I said to them, so you're elective surgery. So there's noses, there's hands, so they want them to be beautiful and shaped and so on. I said, your fit out, your space needs to reflect that. So when people are sitting in the waiting room, knowing they're going to get some the bump on their nose, and they're looking at your reception and it's beautiful and crafted and they start going, wow, the attention to that. There's a synergy in the space to relate to the function of what they're doing.
Yes, but fundamentally, patients within spaces need to feel comfortable.
Yes.
And from the doctor's point of view or the specialist's point of view, it is about workflow.
Yeah.
How does the patient come in? Where do they go? How does the workflow of doctor to nurse to physio to receptionist, how does that all work? And how does patient moving from here? You've got to think about people discussing possibly, having an operation. They don't want to discuss that right in the middle of reception. So we often put little rooms aside where they're kind of talking about that sort of stuff.
So, technical side, the emotive side, the functional side. But you just touched on that, that workflow, that's the business side then. So to understand how a business works means that business can operate at its most efficient and optimum and be more profitable. Now, if a client comes to us and goes, oh, they can do that, they've listened to that, and lo and behold, and that particular fit out we did, they've made comment to me over years and years about how they've been able to increase their flow and therefore their revenue.
Well, their turnover.
To me, that's from an interior designer to be talking and asking and wanting that to be awesome for them. That's bigger than selections.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. So I've had doctors say to me that they have measurabled, what's the word? So they have been able to measure their increase in patient numbers since we moved them from one fit out to another.
And look, majority of the time they're investing good money for good design and good outcomes to facilitate the biggest outcome, which is their business.
Yeah, and happy staff too.
All of that. And that's why I think this is bigger than even just this one page, because I think the more people can understand the value and worth of interior design and design in general to facilitate all these things, it's no different to me than going to the dentist to get the crown or going to the hairdresser to get your hair cut. You want to be making something better, more efficient.
Efficiencies, I think, are the things that clients sometimes underestimate we do so well.
Yeah. So you can turn someone from that fit out was about, the fit out looks tired, we're operating really well, we've got to get some new chairs, to recreating a whole new space, place, feeling that has now kicked goals all the way through. And I think it'd be just lovely if people can get out of this that the power of that could be it's quite empowering.
Well, I think clients need to also understand what's their driver.
Yeah.
Is it better efficiency, better planning efficiencies? Is it that they want their staff? Well, some people want their staff to collaborate more. Others think that they're talking too much and they don't want to stop the collaboration because it's having a negative effect on their product. So every company has a different agenda for what they want their space to provide for them. And if they can identify that really clearly, then it's actually much better for us because we know what we're aiming towards.
Well, that's the info gathering right at the start, where we've got a series of surveys. It's a health check, right? So I think gathering that, getting to know the client, just facilitates all of that awesome stuff.
But you think you talk to clients like in their house, they might say, I just want to come home and I want to feel at peace and restful, and therefore that will then have an impact on what the tone of the finishes are.
Yep.
So you look at something like the Apple shop. You've got everything slick, stainless steel, lighting, but there's no decoration anywhere. Everything is like perfectly aligned. Everything is gridded. So it's almost like, what are those things called? Those data boards? Chipboards? Microchip boards? Those things you do? Motherboard or something. Yeah. It's kind of like that.
All right.
Which is completely different to like an ASOP. Which is about health and healing and calmness. So you look at those two retail shops, you are applying the same thought process to residential, to medical, to offices.
I'm going to say, I think it's quite simple to break that down. And the more it becomes organic, not, oh, geez, have I checked in on their emotional status? It's just the way we as designers that we want to mentor the guys that are surrounding us to I guess feel that, because until you do feel it, until you go through the process from the start and get something finished and get into that space and see how it operates, they're really big moments.
And we also test our own designs too. Like I think if I was to do another house, I probably wouldn't do the kitchen super close to the living room.
Do you want to do another house?
No, but I'm saying that's the learning from having a house with an open plan is that sometimes I can be noisy in the kitchen and it bothers people who are watching TV.
Yes, it does. Apparently. Okay. Is it important for an interior designer to understand everything architectural and structural? We've probably covered it a bit, but you touched on it before because that project, won't name it, that you're working on at the moment, it's a retrofit of a space. It's a very specialised space. But if I say the words like seismic analyses, when you were going through uni studying interior design, I guarantee you wouldn't have thought you
it wasn't a standard then where it is.
But all of a sudden you and your team working on that project are starting to have to talk to not only the builder and a structural engineer about seismic control in a medical fit out. It's a bit of a far out example in that particular space, but it happens, and we've got to uncover that and we've got to understand it. And we're not meant to know it, but we've got these channels and avenues to go, well, who do I need to get? Who do I need to band in? And that's what it's about. It's not like, oh, I don't know anything about structure. No,
and I think most interior designers I know are just naturally very curious.
Yeah, true.
And inquisitive. And we always want to uncover the more you know, the better the design can be.
Yep. I feel that building the team of architects, interiors, structural, landscape, and a myriad of other consultants pending the project's critical from the outset, right? And we touched on whether they can all be involved. You don't want to sit around in an initial startup meeting with 50 people, but that's the business side of it. But, I said before, it never ceases to amaze me, even commercial and residential, what they think we can give them. And it's always they being the clients. And it's only because they don't know, but they're more surprised at how much we as a design firm include in our service and our fee. And this is after they've signed on the dotted line. Yep, you go and do your thing. And it's like every stage we go, oh, we do that. Oh, you do that. I don't have to go do that. That blows my mind. Does it mean other people aren't doing it that way? I mean, I think we do it quite well, and it's just ingrained in us to do everything that needs to.
It's also about us controlling the end result that we're happy with.
Yep. With what we do as architects and interior designers, there's a lot of hats that we have to wear through to construction. And again, I'm not convinced the general public even know that an interior designer would be going down to a 30-story multi-residential building, walking around with hard hats on freshly formed concrete, looking at where the spaces are going to be. But the more we do that, the more we encourage it, the more we promote it, the better designers will be, because they can stand in those spaces and go, oh, wow, this is a drawing and a space that I did, and it's, okay, I can see how it's all coming together.
I think that's actually sometimes the best part of our career is that we dream up something.
Yeah.
We then draw it. We then administer it to make sure that it's built the way it was intended. And then we get to see it finished. Yeah. So sometimes it's actually really hard for me to understand a job that is not, doesn't have, what's the word?
Is this a game of charades?
No.
Okay.
I don't know what the word is.
Well, I don't really know what you're talking about. We'll come back to it.
No, it's that what we dream up, we see created.
Yeah.
Whereas, say, a business analyst, it's about numbers.
So we see the vision already.
There is a word for it. I don't know. Blame.
I don't know.
Blame perimenopause.
We'll get to that. Not that. Now, after 20 years, or nearly 20 years, we've recently made a bit of a tweak.
Have we?
Well, to
yes.
our name, and it seems to feel like it goes against what I've been saying, but I think intrinsically I've always thought interiors and architecture, they're so combined, they're never separated, right? But we've recently done the tweak and it's base architecture and interiors. I think it's really still great to have that there as a reminder or a prompt, or for future clients and clients to see that, yes, they are together and it's connected. It's not an additional service. It's what we are.
Yes.
So a couple of reasons. The first was that we've discussed, I've always thought that the two would joined at the hip, right? And didn't need to be differentiated, but I sort of feel like, and watching the sign go up was, I don't know, it was just a moment where I thought, why didn't we do it earlier? Because it was, I just assumed it was that way, but I think it's now
we work in that integrated way. So by title, it didn't really matter.
No.
But it probably, I guess what we show is that the interiors work we do, sometimes we don't even involve the architects.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But on that note as well, I think by doing that, we've, in the last, what would you say, call it 5 years, maybe it's more, but we've made a concerted effort to have, like at the moment we're at 11, 12, right? And there's 3 designated interior designers. And yes, we have a variety of architects that some either love or, want to get right into the nitty gritty. So at any given time, you can conceivably say we have a couple more, right? But there's 3 designated interiors, which I think is a good proportion for the overall numbers that we have. And that doesn't put pressure on us or me or Base or Chris as the business to go, we need to seek more interior projects, because every project has an interior component. And if anything, they're more specifically interiors. You know what I mean? It's nearly like, well, it's not every project's an architectural project with some interiors. It's nearly like you just said it. There's some interior projects where the architects don't get involved.
Sometimes we just work hand in hand. Like, so the architect and interior designer working on the job, we can both design and document joinery. Yeah. So we could do that simultaneously.
Especially if you've both been at that front there where you've met the client and you both...
what needs to happen.
It's what I've found with some is we're sitting down with a client and I'm sitting there with maybe LV and we're both taking notes in our own discipline. And then you come together and go, well, what do we find is the conquering concept for it? And you go, oh yeah, those three will meet together. But look, I'll go off and specifically do those, and then you come together. And I think that's super powerful, where you that change or the two just seamlessly meld together. Okay, only a couple more little dot points, and these were from the team. I grabbed. Just said,
right.
Tell me. I just talked about the team, but tell me about our interiors members now. Just a little snippet.
So we've got a new grad who's just joined us after doing some work experience with us in her final year. Just complete sponge, loving the fact that she's being exposed to lots of different parts of every job, and really excited about the pace that we work. Fantastic. That's Soph. And then LV.
Just before you go on, that I saw her the other day. I think you were talking to her about a job that had probably something that was a little bit left field, like the seismic stuff, and she has a little book.
She writes it down. So if she's not sure about something, she'll go and research it, which is fantastic.
That's good, because the flip side of that is someone going, oh, I don't know about that. I don't need to know about that. There's someone else's problem.
She's curious.
She's very curious. And I think that goes into that, maybe when she was also 6, 7, rearranging her bedroom, and it's probably ingrained in her that way. But going back, that she did that work experience, which is, I think, commendable from the universities of the interior design degree, that they put that as it's a quasi-elective.
No, it's not quasi, it is an elective.
Okay, it's called an elective, but they can choose to go and work 100 hours in a firm, and lo and behold, we've done it now 3 or 4 times.
That's actually what they have to do. They don't choose. So they have the elective. It means that they have to
But
go
the
and
4
work.
times we've done it, and we've done 2 interiors and 2 architectural, I think, we've hired each of one of them after the 100.
I think you get a really good sense of if they're going to cut it.
So I think commending the universities for pushing that, I think going back to the change and evolution of interior design, there is the universities that are recognising that even as a stronger body. Now, talking about bodies and boards, the Institute of Architects.
You haven't let me talk about LV.
I'm going to get there, but I missed something before. Well, you're pushing this stance about getting recognition for the interior designers. So there's Board of Architects. Now, the pay grades and the salaries, there's never one for interior designers. That's what's getting pushed now, and there's a group that have been pushing it for a couple of years now to get that formalised. And I don't know if it'll be yet a Queensland recognised one or Australian one or an international one.
They're aiming for national.
Yeah. But again, that's
because
the
they're
evolution.
trying to push the interior design industry into like a building designer, drafty, whereas we want to be able to stand alone.
Yes, yeah. So I think it's good, and I think that needs to be pushed. And I think if all the parties, which is businesses, universities,
it's for accreditation.
Yeah.
So you actually know that when you are someone calling themselves an interior designer, they need to meet certain study credentials and experience credentials.
Yep. I think it's great for the industry. So that evolution, I think, will just keep going.
Do you want me to talk about LV?
Yes, LV. LD now.
Well, LD now. So LD's got a couple of years' experience. She's come into the team with a fantastic confidence. She's great with clients. Really good planner. I think that's really important.
Yep.
So really focused on planning, which is awesome. Got a great eye for finishes and has the ability to understand the psychology of space and how it impacts people. I'm really happy with the team.
It's really it's good. I think it's melding well, and it's even morphing, and I guess with our culture and our workplace, what we've created there is, I guess, testament to the staff that we have. And I think, okay, my next question, would you like to see us grow this side of the business further, and why?
I think it has to be connected with the architecture as well.
So not, but not.
Oh, maybe not. Maybe not.
I don't think so. I think it can be standalone. We haven't talked about this. I was just posing it, thinking, we're always watching our numbers because I always talk about the sweet spot of where the business is, but we've never fractured and broken it down as to, well, what's the real makeup of it. Inevitably, you get the numbers, and you have so many architects, so many grads.
One of those things that projects don't always just run from start to finish.
Yeah, true.
There's always a bit of down time in that you get to a certain stage and then you kind of, send your drawings out so that, the consultants can look at them, and then you're kind of waiting until you get there. So there's always a kind of in and out. I think if you load up the team too much, there's kind of like, I don't know, you kind of got to, you've got to be very flexible in how the team works.
Yeah, but I think with how we are and how we've grown and how we've evolved even our systems, let's just say, there's 3 of you and you're like, look, a couple of projects are sitting in DA, they're not going to come out for a while. And not that anyone's ever sitting around twiddling their thumbs, but we've got so many systems in place and things that people can do to even improve those, which inevitably make a project run better. Like that, what we were talking about the other day about creating those levels of finishes so we can explain to clients what a different cost is. That's a project in its own right. Yes, we might not get a fee for doing that, but we're building our own IP to facilitate the growth of those things. Right. So there was no right answer or wrong answer to that. I was interested to see whether you had this bee in your bonnet about, I want to get more people. I know you want to probably back off a little bit, but that's okay.
I don't know why you asked me that.
What's the most rewarding project you have worked on? And there's been a lot, so I'm interested in this. And what were the key reasons? Because we've talked about, I think, all of the big pieces of the pie.
I could not pick one.
I knew you were going to say that. You can't sit on the fence.
I don't know.
Refinery?
Yes, but I think I was very naive at how amazing that project was.
Yeah,
because I was only in my early 20s, had never worked on a heritage listed, and really that project was successful because of the fantastic experienced team that I was in.
At one stage, we were both on that project, right? And I remember Pat Fraser. No, but I remember Pat Fraser said to us, you two won't realise...
Was Greg Killen.
Oh, was it? You won't realise how good that project is to work on. And now, what is it, 20, 30 years later or whatever it is?
He was about 10 years older. True. So he was kind of in his maybe mid-30s.
Yeah. Anyway, that's something I thought. But surely there's... What? Mobo?
Oh.
That was big.
That was big. Yeah. Probably too big for me.
Yeah. Yeah, we probably realised that.
Too many hours.
Well, that was a job that realistically probably should have had 4 people on it full time for 4 or 5 months. Okay, well battered. Trends.
Yeah.
This has come from LD. She goes, oh my God, I hate trends and fads. It's got to be timeless.
Yes,
and it is true.
I completely agree. Completely agree.
Going back to the block and the likes, they are a bit faddy and trendy.
They are basically putting in finishes that the advertisers are paying them to put in, which is fine. It gets people thinking about nice things rather than just doing the same old stuff.
But even the fact that LD is gone, that's something it's like, I don't like
Architects are supposed to set if you think, I often see that architects are pushing the boundaries and they're actually, doing really interesting things. Then you see the copycats after that. And they're the ones that are the same things are coming up in project homes or builders copying certain details that architects come up with in their brain, we design things that are custom built.
Yeah.
We don't just go and buy stuff off the shelf. If we actually want a specific custom powder coat colour, we design it. We work with artisans or trades, metal fabricators.
But that's the same with car manufacturing. That sometimes you go, it can annoy you when you feel like you've not, you're never going to own something and no one else can do it or use it or whatever. And if someone does,
why should people really, and I mean, this is the flip side of thinking, why should someone who can't afford architect to work on their,
Yeah.
house, why should they be any lesser allowed to have a kitchen that an architect does? The case study houses. There's testing that architects do, and the clients who've got the budget for architects to test ideas, and when they're successful. If you think about 20 years ago, kitchens weren't the shape that they are now because someone's come up with an idea. Okay, well, this is actually a really good formula. You get really good flow, and then that has then just trickled down into the general builders' houses or townhouses. And it's true. Like, why should it be just that?
I know.
Why should everybody not benefit
from it?
And I have heard that before. Is that the architect, the people with really massive budgets who can afford the time it takes to test ideas and build prototypes and let's just see if this works, or okay, right, we're going to change that. The whole industry and the whole, everybody involved in design benefits from that testing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, it is, you're not always going to get clients that are happy for you to test things, which is why we do a lot of testing stuff on anything that we build and do, which is fun part of it. Okay, so before we wrap up, I'm just going to explain to everybody how we met, just for a little bit of context.
Sure.
So the try to keep it short, which won't be, but Nat did an arts degree and I did engineering. So we came into university, which is the first year is interior design, urban planning, landscape, industrial and architecture.
So it's a Bachelor of Built Environment we did.
So there was
we had different majors.
I'm going to call it 400 people. It might be wrong, but let's call it 400 in that first year. So we've both come in a couple of years older, and I didn't have a girlfriend at the time. Nat was reasonably, involved.
Almost broken up with a boyfriend.
And in the first couple of weeks of university, they send us all over to Moreton Island to get to know each other, and you split into different camps. And look, long story short, I just
accidentally
took a beeline to next to Nat's tent, just to, see where that could take us. And then, the rest is history. We can probably not go into any more detail.
He walked past me as we got up in the morning and I was heading to the toilet block and Sean was coming back from the toilet block. And I think I winked at you and...
I may have taken it the wrong way because she's got a bung eye.
And I was like, he's got good eyebrows.
Good eyebrows, and now they're all falling out. But I nearly missed that ferry.
Yeah.
That's the absolute truth. I may have gone out that night, got home late, wasn't feeling very well, and made that ferry by the skin of anything. Took nothing. Was not prepared, no food, no nothing.
We ran out of food.
Yeah, I had to borrow. I was borrowing milk and all sorts of things. That's how it happened.
So third week of uni.
Yeah. There was a couple of couples.
Yes, who are married with children now.
Yeah. Well, it's a long course. It's a long time that you're in that industry and you live and breathe it. And then we went and worked together and travelled and all sorts of stuff. So
I don't think anybody understands how much time goes into architecture and interior design assignments.
It's 20, yeah, but even just the
you have
profession,
to live it, breathe it.
24/7, and
I get in trouble if I go to a restaurant and I'm not looking at Sean. I'm just looking at details, trying to work out how did they do that? What's at the back there? And he's like, "Can you concentrate on me?"
It's not true, but it is very encompassing. I think it's even wherever we go, whatever we do, it's always about design and spaces.
Because you're basically a sponge everywhere you go. Every space I go into, I'm analysing it for different reasons.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and thanks, Nat.
No worries, babe.
For what I think was pretty informative. I think the aim of that particular one, again, to inform and just let people know the power of what some of the services can be was really, really good. So, like all of the other podcasts, Spotify, and the other places where you get podcasts. Watch that and stay tuned for the next one. I haven't quite decided what that one's going to be yet. Maybe we can spitball that over dinner.
Good. My pleasure.